So after an opening day laced with missed opportunities, the West Indies will be hoping to limit the damage on day 2 of the second and final test against New Zealand at the Basin Reserve in Wellington. When play resumes in just a few minutes from now, the Kiwis will restart on 294 for 6. Ricardo Chambers looks back on how day 1 unfolded.
West Indies electing to field for a second time in the series. New Zealand starting on the front foot.
It's a glorious shot.
The home side racing to 31 before Shannon Gabriel marked his 50th test with the wicket of Tom Blundell for 14.
Got him! It's another matchup that goes in favour of this man.
Debutant Shamar Holder hit his straps from the very first ball. The Barbadian bowling with pace and accuracy and quickly joining the test wicket-taking club. Tom Latham out for 27 as Joshua Da Silva claimed his first test catch. West Indies bowled well generally in the first session, especially in the last half an hour. In the process, Gabriel snatching the vital wicket of Ross Taylor for 9. New Zealand 82 for 3 at lunch, but it seemed the Caribbean side switched off after. Jermaine Blackwood giving Henry Nicholls his first of 3 chances in quick succession. Captain Jason Holder left to show his fielders how it's done.
Oh, that is a ripper! Wow!
Will Young out for 43, Gabriel with his third. 148 for 4 at that stage, 203 when the next wicket fell. Alzari Joseph, who had been unlucky previously, getting an inside edge onto BJ Watling stumps. Nicholls capitalized on the opportunities given to share in 3 half-century partnerships and bring up his century.
Henry Nicholls comes back for a couple, and that is Test match century number 6.
And Shamar Holder, who also had a chance dropped off Nicholls, got his second wicket late on. Darryl Mitchell leg before for 42. Nicholls closing on 117. Kyle Jamieson on 1. New Zealand 294 for 6 from 84 overs faced.
Match debutants Shamar Holder and Joshua Da Silva spoke to reporters after the day's play, both addressing the difficulties in handling windy conditions at the start of the day.
Wanting the wind was coming a bit strong, so it was kind of tough with the run up, and then coming onto the back end with the ball a lot older, it started to do a bit, so it was a lot more challenging in terms of you could make the batsman play a lot more or try to set him up. Instead of early up, it was just going straight on.
With the as a wicketkeeper with the wind, it was after the bat was swinging a lot, so I had to just keep my eye on it as much as possible. And standing up straight was a struggle at sometimes because of how strong it was. But no, it was a good challenge and I enjoyed it.
Okay, so let's now join international cricket commentator Fazeer Mohammed to review what happened on day 1. Well, Faz, welcome to the SportsMax Zone again as a regular contributor to the show in cricket discussions. Let's start with the 2 young men that we just saw there. Their feelings on what happened on day 1. Your thoughts quickly on how the 2 new caps performed on opening day.
I thought they started quite well, Lance. Certainly Shamar Holder was into it very early, and I suppose it was almost poetic that it was the man behind the stumps also in his first test match who took the catch, and he looked pretty competent behind the stumps. He looked to be collecting cleanly, his feet were moving nicely, and I think he was certainly encouraged when the very first delivery that he got in the gloves, he almost got a high five from everyone in the team. Certainly the captain led the way, and then Shamar Holder certainly was prepared to lead from the front as well, and then that vital wicket towards the end of the day. So I think when you talk about it in the context of the debutants, I thought they did a really good job with their efforts and their commitment to the cause. Yeah,
we're going to come to the fielding deficiencies in just a moment, Faz, but what of the overall performance, the body language and the way the West Indies approached the task, having decided to field, having won the toss?
Well, I suppose, Lance, everyone is hoping for the miracle of Headingley to be repeated after the West Indies lost inside 3 days at Birmingham in 2017. They rebounded miraculously to chase down 322 on the last day to win that test match. And certainly the team is bouncy, they're alive. You can hear a lot of chatter, which you usually expect with the West Indies team anyway. And given the nature of the pitch, in fact, both captains concurred that they would have bowled. The first, Tom Latham, said he would have done exactly the same thing. However, the issue is that do New Zealand feel already, and they won't say it obviously, that they've got enough runs on the board to put the West Indies under pressure given how they performed in the test match in Hamilton when they were bundled out twice on what was a much easier batting track. This time around, because of those chances missed, because of the opportunities that went a begging, and take nothing away as well from the determination of the New Zealanders, 294 for 6 is a formidable total on this track. And I suspect that New Zealand, going into the second day in a few minutes' time, will be looking not to just stick around and drag through the innings, but to get quick runs if they can and get the West Indies stuck in.
Some consternation yesterday afternoon at this time, Faz, about the West Indies' decision to field first, having seen what happened in the Hamilton test when New Zealand batted first and scored over 500 runs. What are your thoughts on the decision to bowl first?
I thought it was inevitable, because I think the first thing we have to realize is that the West Indies batting lineup is not the New Zealand batting lineup. There's always that fear, and we've seen that manifested many times over. And Lance, this is nothing new. We've seen situations previously under the captaincy of Brian Lara, notably against Australia in the Caribbean in 2003, where every time he won the toss, he would choose to put the opposition in rather than the West Indies bat first. And there was always that feeling that the West Indies were fearful over many test matches, over many decades, of being bundled out early by the opposition. And that certainly would have been a concern, apart from what appeared the obvious considerations of not just a green pitch, but a firmer track. And you saw the amount of bounce that was being extracted by the West Indies bowlers, and that's why there would have been an element of trepidation about how the West Indies batting lineup would fare early on a first-day pitch.
Yeah, well, they got 6 wickets, Faz, which wasn't bad, but it could have been better. Darren Bravo floored 2 or 3 chances at slip, and there were some other fielding issues for the West Indies team. How bad was it in the field for the Windies?
That's not acceptable, Lance. I mean, we might be accused of being harsh on the team and so on, but look, we're talking about the highest level of the game. And if nothing else, any team that is struggling should be able to be competent, if not excellent, in the fielding department. And that's what can really lift your team. We saw that previously with other teams. When Sri Lanka first came onto the international scene in the late 1970s, with the World Cup of 1975 and then Test cricket in 1981. They were rather ordinary, batting and bowling, until the likes of Muttiah Muralitharan and Chaminda Vaz showed up. But they became a force to reckon with their fielding, and they led the way for the Indian subcontinental teams with the quality of their fielding. And I thought the West Indies really let themselves down. It's unacceptable that half chances could be missed, opportunities missed in slips. Yes, the sharp chance at forward short leg to Shamar Brooks was very, very difficult. That would have to stick. But then you had Jermaine Blackwood basically rushing in off the boundary, where had he stayed in his position, he probably would have had the chance to take the catch at fine leg. Those errors are piling up, and they're really not acceptable if you're talking about a test quality team.
Yeah. On the other side of the coin, that Jason Holder catch at slip was brilliant, wasn't it? Difficult for someone of his height, 6 feet 7 inches tall, to show the agility and quickness to get down to take that catch. Although I have to suggest that with his wingspan, maybe Bravo wouldn't have been able to reach it.
But still, you've got to go to get it. And I think the more you look at that dismissal, the more you slow it down and look at it from any angle, it really is an outstanding effort, Lance. Because, as you said correctly, for a big man, we know he's got a safe pair of hands anywhere in the field, and certainly in the slip cordon as well. And to go down so quickly, remember Shannon Gabriel bowling on a juicy track,
yes,
and going away towards his right hand, even if it's natural hand, it was still a really brilliant effort.
Faz, as usual, always great talking to you on the SportsMax Zone. We'll catch up on Monday when we'll have a lot more to say about this test match. Thanks, man.
I suspect so. Take care.
Yeah. Wayne, let's talk first about that Jason Holder catch. It was, I would think, the best moment of the opening day for the West Indies, apart from Shamar Holder's first test wicket, which was so gratifying for the young man, who was rewarded for a couple of spells of pretty solid bowling, I thought.
It's one word, outstanding, Lance. So you talked about his height, 6 feet 7, for him to go down and to his right and dive the way he did, and that ball stuck in his hands, in his hand, because he could have easily flipped out once he hit the ground, but he held on to it. That was just outstanding. That came after some drop catches. You talk about the drop catching in this game as well. Blackwood is a brilliant fielder. He's very agile, and he takes great catches, he'll run you out from the boundary and so on. So for him to get it that badly where he ran in, obviously that ball appears that it wasn't going to get to him. And once he moved forward, he went over his head. That was most unfortunate. But bravo, I don't know on what basis he dropped that first catch, because it's good height, slow, it wasn't like it flew to him. He had all the time in the world. I won't fault him for the second catch, because the captain, Jason Older, came across a bit and pulled back.
Yeah,
so
but he didn't even get his hand to it, did he?
Right, because it would have put him off somewhat, because it has happened to me already in the slips. Once you're in the slips and the catch is coming and somebody moves, it throws you off. And that's what happened there. So I won't fault him too much for that, but I thought that West Indies should have done better in terms of capitalizing on those chances, knowing fully well that your batting team is struggling. And it's a juicy pitch. I'm hoping that today the pitch will flatten out a little more and we won't see so many balls misbehaving. It'll be a flatter track and we could bat and hopefully bat well. I know looking at our top 6 batsmen, no confidence is there. Everybody's struggling, with the exception, of course, Jermaine Blackwood, who got a century.
Yes.
We're not going to rely on Alzari Joseph to get another 86. I can't imagine that's going to happen. So somebody at the top order will have to turn up in this innings, because if we don't, it's going to be curtains for us.
Turning the clock back, I remember yesterday afternoon when there was some dispute in the SportsMax offices here about another decision to field first. You, at the start of play yesterday, accepted the decision and recognized, Wayne, that it was a real situation of the team management and captain, I would think, just doubting the quality of the batting and, as you just said, the confidence of the batting to take on a very, very potent New Zealand new ball attack first morning.
Yes, I was happily disappointed, to be honest with you, when this person has decided to ask New Zealand. Yes, they came out again and said they would have done a similar thing, right? They would have asked us to bat. But I'm always of the opinion that it's easier to bat on a first-day pitch than a fourth or a fifth-day pitch. Yes. Because the fourth or the fifth-day pitch is going to misbehave a lot more than the first morning pitch. A bit slow, bouncy, juicy, the ball seaming around and so on. So if you as an opening batsman or your top order can bat through that and be patient, then it's a lot easier than batting last.
Yeah, you say that now, but having watched what the ball did and how much the West Indies bowlers got out of the new ball against a pretty solid top order New Zealand batsman, do you still think that the West Indies should have bat first?
I'm going to stick to my position, Lance. It will be a lot easier for them to bat yesterday than to bat on fourth or fifth year. No, I'm telling you, it's difficult, Lance, when the pitch dries out with all the cracks in the pitch and the ball marks are in the pitch and the ball is seaming around, balls are keeping low, balls are flying. Trust me, it's a lot more difficult to bat last than first.
Can I ask you quickly, though, about Darren Bravo and his lack of efficiency in the slips yesterday? I remember he did have an Achilles issue in the first test. I'm not sure if he's 100%. Sometimes people talk about feeling in the slips and your sharpness and how quick your reflexes are is a reflection of where your eyes are. Do you think his performance in the slips on opening day is probably an indicator that when he goes to bat, he may not be as sharp as he needs to be?
Well, it depends on his attitude and approach. I mean, sometimes you drop catches like those, it plays on your mind and you go to bat, you're down, it can affect your confidence. Similarly, you can say, listen, yes, I've dropped some catches, I'm not pleased about it, I'm going to make it up. You saw Andre Rosa talked about the fact that he's learning to manage his body. He'll give away a 4 and try to make it up back when he's batting. Then I'm sure he's going to say, listen, I gave away X amount of runs. Nichols, he must be the luckiest man in the world. He's unbeaten on 117.
Yes.
And he had something to do with that. So he'll have to respond to that and say, you know, I've let the team down with my catching. I'm going to make 100 to get us back in the game. So that might be some of the motivation that he'll take into his innings.
Yeah. We have a full 90-minute SportsMax Zone program today, not like we've had most of the week when live football coverage had travelled into the 4:30, 5:30 Eastern Caribbean time SportsMax start. But lots of action coming up on the home of champions in the coming days. A lot of cricket coming up. We have that India A team against the Australia A team. That match started last night and low scoring at the moment. We continue to have that along with Sri Lanka Premier League cricket. And don't forget, on Monday morning, the UEFA Champions League round of 16 draw. That's at 6 o'clock Monday morning, 7 o'clock Eastern Caribbean time. And after that, we have the Europa League round of 32 draw. And that starts at 8 o'clock Eastern Caribbean time, 7 o'clock in Jamaica.